Hey guys, so we're going to move on to the next unit in Algebra 1, and that's Unit 5. And this unit is all about graphing equations and inequalities, okay? So in order to graph something, I first have to introduce you guys to the coordinate plane. So the coordinate plane is made up of two intersecting lines, okay? It is made up of horizontal line and a vertical line. So that's what a coordinate plane is. It has a horizontal line and a vertical line here, okay? Now it's important to know what each piece of the coordinate plane represents, okay? So what I'm going to show you is that the coordinate plane is separated into first 4 quadrants, okay? So the quadrants are a little weird. We actually start with quadrant 1 and we use Roman numerals to name this. So we have quadrant 1 is over here, and then it goes in a counterclockwise order. This one's quadrant 2. This one is quadrant 3, and this one is quadrant 4. Again, I'm using Roman numerals here, so we have quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes in a counterclockwise motion. It's also important to note that in a coordinate plane, the center point here, which is at 0, 0, in a coordinate plane. So our center point here is at 0, 0. This is called the origin of the coordinate plane. So this is the middle, the center point where the two lines meet, okay? And we plot it as 0, 0 because all coordinates in a coordinate plane are represented. They're also called ordered pairs. They are all in the form x, y. So notice that we have this axis right here. We have this axis, that the horizontal axis, the one that goes across from left to right. It has a little label here for an x because that axis is called the x-axis. So wherever the point is at on that axis is what you put first in your ordered pairs, okay? So the x-axis is always going to be whatever value you have for x and 0, okay? Because you're not going anywhere on your y-axis. So your x-axis is always in the form x comma 0 as an ordered pair. Notice we also have the second axis here, which is the vertical one. And the vertical one has that label y there. So that vertical axis is called the y-axis. And all of the points that you plot on the y-axis would be labeled as ordered pairs 0, comma y, whatever the y value is. Okay, so any point that you would plot on the y-axis, that's how you would write it, 0, comma, whatever the y value is. Okay, so these are just your basics of the coordinate plane, what the quadrants are, what the axes are called, and how you would label a point that way. Okay, so all points are labeled X, Y. When you are plotting points, okay, first thing you're going to do is you're going to start at the X coordinate. And then, you are going to start at the origin when you are plotting points. So the first thing you do is you're going to start at the origin, which is at 0, 0. And then from the origin, you are going to count out the X values, or the X, I'll call it count out the X coordinate. And then from there, you're going to count out the Y coordinate. So let's look at what this looks like on a graph of the coordinate plane. So notice also with plotting points, an ordered pair identifies a point and contains an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. So it's important to note that you're always going to be looking for an X coordinate, or all ordered pairs, okay? It's important to note that all ordered pairs have an X coordinate and they have a Y coordinate with them, okay? That you're going to have to count out. So in the next one, it says fill in the blanks to right ordered pairs for the points that are labeled, okay? So in this first point, again, if I start at the origin, I'm going to count till I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to count how many on the x-axis did I go. I went 2 on the x-axis, so that tells me that my x coordinate is going to be 2. And then from there, I'm going to count how many up did I go on the y-axis. And if I notice that on the y-axis, I ended up at the point 6, On my y, I went up 6 notches, so my ordered pair is 2, 6 here. Same thing with the second example. So in this second point right here, we have I started the origin and I counted, I went left 2, and so I ended up at -2, so that is my x value. And then I went up to +2, so that must be my y value. So my ordered pair here would be -2, 2. And then if you count out how much you did for this particular point right here, start at the origin again, notice that I went left and I ended up at -4. So my x coordinate would be -4. And then I went down and ended up at -5. So my y coordinate would be -5. And that's how I would write my ordered pair. Now it says, now you try. Plot the ordered pair 3, -2. And remember to start at the origin. So if I plot the point 3, -2, with my cursor, I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go over to 3 on the x-axis, and then I'm going to go up to 2. Oh, sorry, down to -2 on the y-axis, and I'm going to plot my point right here. There's my point, 3, -2. And then it says to try plotting -1, 5. So as another practice point, so let's plot -1, 5. So if I start at my origin, I'm going to go over to -1 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to go up to 5 on my y-axis. So my point of -1, 5 would be right up here, -1, 5. So notice that the point that I plotted right here on my equation is at 3, -4, and that is an ordered pair. Remember, in an ordered pair, the first number, the 3 in this case, is the x-coordinate, and the second number is the y-coordinate. Okay? So this is your basics of plotting points. Remember, ordered pairs have an x and a y coordinate. You start at the origin, and then you count out how many x's did you go and how many y's did you go to plot your point. Now we're going to talk a little bit about domain and range. Okay, so still working in a coordinate plane, but we're going to talk a little bit about domain and range of functions. So domain is the set of all x coordinates of the ordered pairs of a relation. So when we have a relation or function, when we're talking about domain, we're going to list all of the x coordinates. So if you're given ordered pairs, then you're going to list all of the x's or the first numbers in your ordered pairs. If you're given a table like the second one, you're going to list out all of the x values in the table. If you're given bubbles like the third one, then the x's are what comes first or the leftmost. And if you're given something like a graph, you're going to list out all the ones that are the x values, which is the x-axis that comes across here. The x values are what come across on the x-axis. Now the range is going to be the opposite. So the range is the set of all y coordinates of the ordered pairs of relation. So when you're looking at range, if you're given a set of ordered pairs, then you're just going to list all of the second numbers in your ordered pairs. And then if you're given a table, you're just going to list all of the y values that are listed in your table. If you're given a relation like this, you would list all of the second values. And if you're given a graph, you're going to list all the y values, which are all the values that follow along this axis, the y-axis. So let's look at an example. When they give you a set of ordered pairs, like in our example, they want you to find the domain and the range, okay? So remember, the domain is all of your x values. So in an ordered pair, remember that in an ordered pair, they're always in the form x, comma, y. That is how an ordered pair is set up. So that tells me that in order to find the domain of this, all I'm going to do is I am going to write down all of my x values, or the first numbers in my ordered pair. When I write this, I do have to be careful though, because when you are writing the answers, you have to use the set squiggly bars, and you have to separate the numbers by commas. So our domain would be -4, comma, -2, comma, 0, comma, 3. And then same with the range, I still have to write it the same way. except remember, range is your y values this time. Okay, so I still have to write it as a set with commas, but now I'm going to list what the y values are in my sets of ordered pairs. So notice that my y values here are going to be 5, comma 4, comma -2. And I'm actually not going to repeat the 5. No need to repeat the numbers. So when you are writing a set of numbers for the domain or the range, if a number repeats, like the 5 repeated here, you do not have to repeat it in your set. Okay? So that is your basics of domain and range when it comes to plotting in the coordinate plane and functions in the coordinate plane. Okay? So take your time with this. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.